Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar to Know Your Rights. Leila, welcome.
Hi, Maribel. Hi, John. Welcome, everyone. I see over 5,000 people here, and that number just keeps going up, which is really exciting. We will get started in just a few minutes as we let folks enter. And and we're so glad you're here. We'll get started in 3 minutes. Welcome, welcome.
In the meantime, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, we'd love to hear your name, your pronouns, where are you coming from, well, where you're digitally coming from, and why you are here. And I'll say this in Spanish for our Spanish speakers. Bienvenidas a todos a ese taller para conocer sus derechos. Estamos muy contentos de que estén aquí con nosotros. Vamos a empezar en 3 minutos. Mientras tanto, por favor, preséntense, díganos su nombre, en dónde están y por qué están aquí con nosotros.
Thank you so much, Maribel. I am seeing folks from everywhere. This is so exciting. And I would love it if you could drop in a little bit about also what brought you out of everything you could do today to come to this call. Why are you here with us with the ACLU today, this evening? Oh, I see some folks from Vancouver. I see some folks from Minnesota, Pennsylvania. I see some folks. I saw no kings in all caps. People are here ready. I saw some folks saying that they want to know their rights. They want to be prepared for Saturday. I see Jen from Missouri. I need to learn this to fight for my kids. Thank you. I'm seeing folks. Somebody said, I care about bringing America to its next stage of growth. That's amazing. People want to be prepared.
This
People
is
want to be able
super
to be
exciting.
prepared to de-escalate.
Leila,
It's
I
great.
think let's get us
Sorry.
started. I know it's exciting
I
to
know.
see. I
Sorry,
mean,
Maribel. You're right. You're right. It's so exciting. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. We can move to the next slide and get us started. My name is Layla, and I'll be guiding us through this Know Your Rights training in preparation for our No Kings rallies on Saturday. And that'll be happening on Saturday, October 18th. Whether this is your first time joining us or you've been here with us before, we're so glad. It's going to take all of us to fight for every single person in this country in a time when power is being abused. But before I get started, I want to take a pause and introduce our interpreter on the call and have them introduce some instructions about this feature.
Thank you, Layla. Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Torres. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for having language justice today, which is the reason I'm here. Today, we will turn on interpretation momentarily, and you will see a globe icon at the bottom of your screen where you can select English or Spanish, and then you will be able to hear me on that channel. If you have any trouble, it could be also under the More menu, which is the 3 little dots. But if you're having any trouble, just let us know. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Liz Torres y el día de hoy seré su intérprete con la Cooperativa Comunitaria del Lenguaje. Muchísimas gracias por su compromiso con justicia lingüística para que así todos puedan hablar y en este caso puedan escuchar en el idioma de su corazón. Vamos a encender interpretación y en ese momento aparecerá un icono de globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom, o si también está usted en una tableta o en un teléfono celular, puede verlo por medio del menú de más y ahí seleccionar inglés o español. Vamos a comenzar. Let's go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much, Liz. So just a few notes before we dive in. If you're having tech issues, please drop a message in the Q&A section and a team member will help you out. You can also use the Q&A function to ask any questions. We have ACLU staff working to answer as many of your questions as possible. We will be answering questions live if we have time at the end, And please note that given the large number of people joining us today, we do have to close the chat to allow us all to focus on the presentation. It's amazing that we have thousands of you here, and this just helps us run our webinar a little bit more smoothly. We do have closed captionings available. In order to utilize the captions, click the CC button at the bottom of your screen and select Show Subtitles. We will email all people who registered a recording of tonight's training, and the recording will include the slides. Tonight's webinar will be much more engaging if you can join using the Zoom app on your computer or smartphone so that you can see the beautiful slides we've prepared. Everyone who registered for this training, once again, will receive the recording. So finally, please note that we have created this space for the community to safely ask questions. If you are a member of the media and have a press-related question, please email media@aclu.org. All right, let's go to the next slide now that we have gotten all prepared. And with this, I want to introduce to you who we are. My name is Layla, like I said, and I'm not a lawyer, but I am a part of the ACLU. And I want to introduce who we are. ACLU People Power is a nationwide volunteer organizing network where we take action to protect civil rights and democracy. We, the people, are the heart of the movement. And all of you here are part of that. Thank you so much for being here and for standing up for your rights by being at this training. Now, at the next slide, I'd like to just quickly go over what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover, Maribel is going to cover why we're here, and then we're going to hear a lovely Know Your Rights presentation. We're going to also test our knowledge with live practice. And then we're going to go over best practices and finally close out with how you can take action. And if we go through everything smoothly, we will have time for a Q&A. So that's all that we're going to cover today. I'm really excited. Every time I do one of these, I learn something new, even though I've sat through a few now. But before we get started, we want to hear from you about your level of knowledge about your rights. You're going to see 3 questions appear in a poll. You might have to scroll down in the poll as well to fully complete it. And we have 3 questions in this poll. The first one, we want you to first just rate your level of confidence with the following statement. I know my basic rights when it comes to protests and interactions with law enforcement. The second one is in every state, you must at least identify yourself by stating your name and address to an officer who requests it. And 3, true or false, if an ICE agent is not wearing a mask, it is unlawful to photograph or take a video of them without their consent. So don't worry, you're not going to be graded, but please don't cheat so that we know what your real answers are to these questions. So okay, I think the poll is open. Great. So like I said, you might have to scroll down. I'm seeing the answers come in. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of 2s and 3s on this first question. So don't be scared and think that all 10,000 people on this call are at a 5. We certainly are not. We are here to sharpen our knowledge. And I'm seeing some interesting answers. I'm excited to hear from John at the end what the answers to these last 2 questions are going to be, because I don't know if I got them right. I'm seeing some differing answers on them. Love to see some more folks participate. While we give it just a couple more seconds, I want to share just a little bit. When I one time participated in a protest and exercised my First Amendment rights, the police stopped me and it was really scary. And, the cops asked me questions that I was really not prepared to answer. They asked me questions like, what do your parents do for work? What do you do for work? Where do you live? What's your license plate number? And that was really scary. But because I had actually practiced some of the things we're going to talk about in this training today, I was able to navigate that and get out of the situation. So I really want to encourage all of you here to pay attention to what we're going to be talking about and to do these poll questions, which I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're going to close it now. We're going to end the poll. We're going to see how we did. Atia, if you could share the results, or I can hit end poll. Okay. Okay, guys, we're gonna Okay, thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to get started here. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Maribel to tell us more about why we're here.
Thank you, Layla, and thank you, all of you. I see about 80% participation in the poll. Thank you. We want to hear what you need to hear from us, so this is very helpful. Now, let's talk about why we are here. Well, I think many of us have seen a dramatic abuse of power by this administration. We are seeing this administration attack those that they don't agree with. We have seen attacks on students. We have seen attacks on journalists. We have seen attacks on elected officials. We have even seen attacks on comedians. And we're also seeing this administration deploy the military and the federal agents to our communities. Now, why are they doing so? Well, these are tactics to enforce compliance through fear, force, and censorship. Next slide, please. Now, let's be clear. This is not normal. But we, the people, have shown that we're not powerless. As we know, there are lawyers in the courts challenging illegal actions and illegal policies. But we know that the courts are only one tool. And we have seen that when regular people raise their voices and speak up against the abuses, things change. For example, we saw how this administration attacked Jimmy Kimmel. Well, just hours after 475 artists and 40,000 people joined the ACLU in a letter condemning the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel's show, his show returned to the airwaves. We also are seeing how, as people raise their voices against the abuse of power that we're seeing with deportations, the abuse of power that we're seeing with the deployment of the National Guard, we are seeing a change in the narrative. We are seeing poll after poll showing that the American people do not support these policies. Next slide, please. And so this is why we're here today. We are here today because we know that research has shown us that when at least 3.5% of the population actively participates in nonviolent movements, fundamental change usually occurs. So in the United States, what that means is that when 11.9 million people actively participate in nonviolent movements, we can make change. And that's why we are organizing No Kings. We are organizing No Kings to show the power of the people. We are organizing No Kings to show that nonviolent, peaceful demonstrations are and will make a difference. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague John to tell us about our rights.
Thank you so much. I am John Blazer, and I'm so happy to be here with you tonight. I feel so heartened by how many of you joined us, and I hope you feel heartened too and have a sense of solidarity that we are in this together. We have big challenges, and by coming together, we have the potential and possibility to overcome those challenges. Over the next 10 minutes, we're going to go over some of the most important constitutional rights that we all hold in the United States. And we're going to discuss how those rights apply to some common situations that arise in interactions with law enforcement officials. I want to make clear the vast majority of you who participate in Saturday's rallies, I believe, will not have any interactions with law enforcement, let alone negative ones that might require you to exercise your rights carefully. But it's still important to prepare, and the rights that we go over will apply to encounters beyond protests, to your interactions with any law enforcement official, whether police, whether ICE, or I hate to say this, never thought I'd have to say this, whether with the National Guard for cities in which the National Guard is now coming. And then we're going to test your knowledge by doing a role play and asking you to make your own judgments as to what went right and what went wrong. And before I jump in, I just want to note that the information we are offering you this evening is not legal advice to you. It is information about what rights we all have in the United States. For legal advice about your own situation, you should, of course, speak one-on-one with an attorney. Next slide, please. Let's talk about your basic rights. Freedom of speech, so important and so much under attack at this moment, making it all the more important for us to continue to exercise our freedom of speech. Our right to a peaceful assembly, and I'll stress the word peaceful here. We don't have a right to assemble in a violent manner or in a manner that destroys property. This is what some people call the protective power of peaceful assembly. It protects our constitutional rights to assemble in a peaceful manner. We have the right not to be detained or arrested without a valid reason. In legalese, sometimes people refer that to as probable cause or reasonable suspicion, depending upon the context in which a law enforcement officer is interacting with you. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. We have the right to refuse consent to searches of our body, our home, and our stuff. And it becomes very important to verbally make clear that you don't consent to a search for reasons we'll talk about in a moment. Everyone knows this one. If you've watched any crime dramas or TV series, I have the right to remain silent, an extremely important right to learn to exercise. And of course, you have the right to ask for a lawyer if you are detained or arrested. Next slide, please. How does this connect to your protest rights? Protest rights are connected to a number of fundamental constitutional rights, many of them in the First Amendment. We talked about the right to free speech and to peacefully assemble. That's what we're doing when we go out on Saturday. In addition, the First Amendment protects our right to petition the government. And what that means is to say what we think needs to be changed and to complain when we think things are not going properly and to demand that policies and laws change. All these things combine into a very robust right to protest in the United States. However, police and other government officials are permitted to place certain limited restrictions on protests. Now, for Saturday's events, the organizers of these events have done a lot of planning to make sure that these events comply with regular rules of time, place, and manner for protests. So you shouldn't have much problem with this, but it is possible you could encounter a police officer to say, could you move off the street because you're blocking traffic here, or you're putting yourself or another pedestrian or car at risk. And that can be proper depending upon the circumstance. And finally, law enforcement can monitor protests and they can enforce laws and intervene for public safety, but they must not use, under the law, excessive force or retaliate against peaceful demonstrators. Next slide. One of the risks of attending a protest is that you might have an interaction with law enforcement that feels challenging. To protect yourself, we recommend always remaining calm and never doing anything that in any way resembles physically resisting a police officer. You want to keep your hands visible if law enforcement approaches you. And again, keep in mind that law enforcement must not detain you for questioning arbitrarily. They need reasonable suspicion that you've committed a crime or are committing a crime. So what this means that if you are stopped and questioned by law enforcement, you can ask if you are free to leave. And you might just be surprised by the response that you are free to leave. And if you are and you want to end that encounter, you walk away calmly and you say, okay, then I am leaving. Next slide. A lot of information in this slide. Let's break it down. One of the questions that comes up often when interacting with law enforcement at a protest or elsewhere is, what questions do I have to answer and what documents must I show? I want to make clear that in some states, not all states, you must identify yourself to police during a lawful stop. Some of these state laws only require you to state your name. Others require you to state your name and address. These laws only apply where the officer already has a good reason to stop you based upon a reasonable suspicion of a crime. They don't apply in cases of casual questioning by a police officer. This does not mean if you're in one of those states that you have to answer questions about your immigration status or where you were born or how you came to this country. It's really about your name, or in some states, your name and address. And as you probably all know, there's no requirement that U.S. citizens carry proof of citizenship if they are inside the United States, although some citizens are choosing to do so as a matter of self-protection against wrongful arrest. However, adult non-citizens who have been granted a lawful immigration status, like a visa or a green card, must carry their immigration papers with them at all times under federal law. And if requested by an immigration agent, they should show their documentation to comply with that requirement. People who are undocumented have the right, like everybody else, to remain silent and consult with a lawyer before answering any questions. And then finally, I want to say something that really bugs me. Depending upon your state, you may be subject to laws that prohibit wearing a mask in some circumstances, like a protest. And if you think it's messed up that somehow it's okay for ICE to wear masks to protect their identities, but people are not allowed to wear masks to protect theirs in some states, well, I agree with you. I think that's messed up too. Next slide. I'll turn it back over to Maribel.
Thank you, John. So now it's time for us to practice what John has just taught us. So let's see how well we do in a role play. We want to bring Layla back with us. And our role play is going to be, Layla is going to be a protester coming back from a No Kings rally, and John will be an officer. Let's see how the interaction goes. Now you should know.
Over there.
You should
No
know
worries.
that.
Actually, we're gonna flip it. I'm gonna be the cop, and John's gonna be the protester. So
Great. And you should know that John has a script. So I would hope he will react differently, but in this case, he's going to commit mistakes on purpose to see how we can do. So Layla and John, over to you.
hello, sir. May I ask where you're coming from?
I'm coming from a rally.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that there was a big one going on today. You didn't go to that one by yourself, right? Who did you go with?
I went with a couple friends. I mean, is there a problem?
You know, there's just so much crime going on in the area. I mean, where are your friends? Where did they go?
I mean, maybe they're home by now. They live closer than I do and they left earlier. What is this about?
I'm curious, John. I mean, we're just asking questions. What group did you come with? Are you part of an organized group?
May I ask why you need to know that?
I mean, if you have nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem. Well, you know, may I ask what your name is? My name is Layla.
Jonathan Blazer.
I see, Jonathan. Are you a US citizen? Are you from here?
I'm a lawful permanent resident, not a citizen, but I've been a lawful permanent resident and have my green card for 15 years.
Look, there's no need to get upset. Jonathan, you know, my family has green cards too. And I'm sure you're smart enough to not be carrying any weapons or drugs. Could I give you like a quick pat down?
What is this about? I mean, I have nothing to hide, so
Oh, is this
okay.
a phone? Did you
Yeah,
take photos at the rally?
of course I took photos at the rally. Come on.
So you don't mind if I look through it real quick?
Wait a minute. I don't think you have the right to look at my phone. No, no, I'm sorry. I don't consent to being searched.
Look, I don't understand why you're getting agitated if you have nothing to hide. How did you get your green card, Jonathan?
Do I need to answer these questions? Are you detaining me or am I free to go?
I guess you can get out of here.
And scene. Thank you, Layla. Thank you, Jonathan. Now let's go over it. As I mentioned earlier, John, you were given a script. But even with that script, let me ask you, how did it feel to be in this role?
I mean, even as make believe, it's nervous. I felt nervous.
Mm.
I don't like that. I don't like that feeling at all.
Mm-hmm. And Leila, let me ask you, because I think you took a specific approach to this officer role. What was your approach?
So like I said earlier, this has happened to me. I've been in a situation with a police officer who shared a similar, ethnic background to me and really tried to use that to get me to talk. Was like, my family, like, was saying like, oh, are you Muslim? I'm Muslim. And that was really, I mean, she really played the good cop. She really tried to get me to talk and say things that were inappropriate. And so I did do that this time. I think we think of cops or law enforcement as using really scary and intimidating tactics, but sometimes they can start really, friendly and they're trying to catch you, especially like just starting a pat down and not waiting for them to say yes. I'm waiting for Jonathan to say no before I stop.
Yeah. And John, one of the things that you taught us earlier was about this right to remain silent. But I didn't see much here. Can you tell us a little bit what was happening through your mind?
I mean, I think most of us have an instinct and intuition to comply and to be compliant and to be cooperative, especially if we feel like we don't have anything to hide. And so I think we saw that instinct in play. Some questioning and skepticism about why they're asking these questions and why they need to know it, but kind of wanting to go along and hoping that things would stop very quickly if you just complied a little bit. If I just complied a little bit.
Yeah, and it seemed interesting because you said comply a little bit, but it seemed like you gave one answer, which led to another answer, which led to another answer. So it seemed that once we start, as you're saying, complying or engaging, it's harder to disengage, right? So not only when you were answering questions, you started answering more and more and more. You talked about where you're like, my friends live closer than me. You talked about your immigration status, and you just told us earlier we don't have to share any immigration status. You talked about the photos that you took. Did you at some point wish you could take it back?
Yes, I did. I
Mm,
mean, especially when I got the answer at the end that I wasn't being detained in the first place, that the officer really had no reason to ask me any questions, but just kind of either fishing or harassing me to see what they might be able to get out of me. I really wish that earlier on I would have asked either more clearly, why am I being questioned, or am I being detained, or am I free to go? So I would have known where I stood earlier. And then I could
mm,
have decided what I wanted to do at that point, whether I wanted to remain and said anything or not, but I would have known I had the option.
yeah. And then another interesting part was when you were asked, could they search you? And your instinct was to say, well, I have nothing to hide, so go for it. And then can you talk about what that led to?
Right. I felt like I didn't have anything to hide. I didn't want to seem sketchy or suspicious. But yeah, it's true. Then the officer found my phone and I got really nervous because I've heard some situations where like law enforcement officers just take your phone from you. Um, and then it finally kicked in that I wanted to say I don't consent to be searched, but I'd already kind of been searched a little bit. But um, the memory kicked in of what I was supposed to say.
And finally, to close this out, Layla, it was interesting how at the end you were like, when he just gave you a little bit of a pushback, right? And he's like, "What is this about? I don't want to do this." You're like, "Okay, well, go away." So that made me think, did Layla really have, did the officer in this case have a valid reason to stop John, to search John? So I want to know what went through your mind. You know, you went through this whole interaction trying to get at something, and in the end, you're like, okay, I'm just giving up. I'm moving away.
Right. Well, in my persona as a police officer, I think the cops are often, or the law enforcement, it's often looking for a reason. So maybe Jonathan's persona would have had drugs or a weapon in their pocket, or maybe they would have given me their ID, and then I look them up and find out that there's a warrant out for their arrests, even though that's not what I was stopping them for in the first place. So it's really important that you know, yeah, basically I'm trying to catch them in something as a law enforcement officer. And also I've at least have seen videos of this, that sometimes a law enforcement officer may not even say you're not being detained. They might just not answer, which is why I just kind of like gave a whatever reaction at the end. So unless they say yes, I believe you can walk away.
Thank you, Layla. Well, John, we're going to turn it over to you so you can give us some key takeaways from this role play.
Let's do it. Thanks for doing that with me, Layla, and taking the bad part. Not the bad part, but I didn't want to play the cop. All right. Some key takeaways. Maribel covered most of them. You want to maintain a calm tone. You don't want to lose your cool. You do want to ask whether you're free to go. I should have asked earlier on. You don't want to walk or run away without first seeking permission. You do want to express your objection to be searched. Could have done that earlier. You do not want to consent to be searched. And you answer fewer questions or remain silent as opposed to feeling a need to answer every question. By the way, hard for you to know this, but I was truthful in what I chose to say to the police officer, and that's a good thing. You don't want to lie or provide fake documents to law enforcement officials. The consequences could be severe for doing so. Next slide. It gets to be hard, though, to remember all of this advice, and another way of practicing is really to learn these 5 key phrases, and not just to read them, but actually practice saying them. And therefore, even though it may make you feel silly, I'm going to ask you 6,000 people, or however many people have joined us right now, to repeat after me at home. And I know it's going to be goofy if you're sitting in front of a laptop and you have a partner there, or a child, or a parent hearing you repeating after me, but I hope you will. Here are the 5 key phrases. Am I free to go? Say it.
Am I free to
Am
go?
I free to go?
I wish to remain silent.
I
I
wish to
wish to
remain
remain
silent.
silent.
I do not consent to this search.
I
I
do
do
not
not
consent
consent
to
to
this
this
search.
search.
Am I under arrest?
Am I under arrest?
And to make you feel even more silly, we're going to sing the last one. Let's see if you can sing with me, Layla and Maribel. I want to speak to my lawyer.
I
I
want
want
to
to
speak to
speak to
my
my
lawyer.
lawyer.
I didn't know you were so talented as singers. There's a lot
Thank
of
you,
multiple
God.
talents on this call. All right. Next slide, please. Let's wrap this up with some other know your rights information that is important. This stuff's going to be familiar to a lot of people on the call. You have the right to remain silent until speaking with a lawyer. You also have a right to make a local phone call. This is all if you're arrested by police and charged with a crime. And if you're charged with a crime and you can't afford a attorney, you will be appointed one on your court date. You do have that right for criminal offenses. And of course, it's dangerous to be locked up, and best to post bond for your safety, best to post bond as soon as possible. Next slide, please. Now, if you're detained by immigration, some of the same rules apply, and there's some variations. You have a right to consult with a lawyer, but if you're just being charged with a civil immigration offense and not a crime, you don't have a right to be appointed a lawyer for free, even if you cannot afford one. Again, you have the right to remain silent. I'm sounding like a broken record with this right to remain silent, and that's because we really want you to remember that one. It's so important. You also have a local phone call that is available to you, and you have a right to notify your consulate of your detention because some consulates may be able to assist you. Next slide, please. Now, if you witness an individual arrest, and especially if you witnessed an arrest in which you feel like someone's rights are being violated, or if it's a wrongful arrest, it's so important to document what you can. You have the right to photograph, to film, to record what's happening in plain view, so long as you're not interfering with law enforcement officials in doing so. You have a right to talk about and publicize truthful information that you obtain lawfully about law enforcement conduct, including the right to tell people about what law enforcement officers are doing and where they are doing it. And this one's real important because the government wants to make us believe we don't have this right. We have the right to tell people their legal rights. I have the right to do what I am doing right now. And I hope that you will take and share this information with friends and family as a general matter. And if you see somebody being arrested by ICE, you have the right to tell them, sir, ma'am, you have the right to remain silent, or you have the right to a lawyer, or you have the right to refuse to consent to being searched. We have those rights. Next slide, please. Finally, if your rights are violated, important, again, we talked about documentation. Write everything down that you remember or can obtain, officer's badge, the agency they work for, their patrol car numbers, try to get contact information for witnesses, try to take photographs of injuries or damages. We encourage you to file a written complaint with the agency, not because that's always going to hold the officer accountable, but because it establishes a record that can be used to defend the individual or with other legal forums. And we very much encourage you to let us know at the ACLU about those violations by contacting the ACLU affiliate in your state. I want to say about documenting, recording, photographing police, and taking these actions if your rights are violated. In any one moment, it can put you in a less safe situation to exercise your rights if you're feeling threatened by a law enforcement official who is ordering you to move back or to stop recording or to stop taking photographs. So we urge you to use good judgment and to balance the rights that you have and your right to exercise them with safety concerns and common sense, which is often very, very context dependent. With that, I will turn it back over to Maribel.
Thank you, John. And you mentioned this, but I think it's worth emphasizing. Step number one is we need to know our rights, but it's also important to have practical tips as to what we should do when we attend a protest, because there are the rights and we also know what can happen. So that's why we're going to go into best practices. Next slide, please. Now, let's talk about how to prepare. Step number one, you've done it, knowing your rights. Thank you for being here. Step number two, when we go to a demonstration, when we're part of a movement, it's always better if we do it together. So invite other people to join you. I know when I go to a demonstration, I go with my mom, I go with my friends, because in community, we are stronger. In community, we protect each other. And in community, it's just much more fun. So invite people who have a similar risk tolerance that you do, because that way you can be together and enjoy. And also dress comfortably. It could be a hot day, it could be a cold day, you'll be walking. So think about, wear something that is comfortable so that you can enjoy the time that you'll be there. Next slide, please. Now, safety. I mentioned this earlier, but safety is really important for all of us at the No Kings rallies. One, we want to make sure that we're safe. We want to make sure that we're peaceful. We want to make sure that we are non-violent. So let's talk about safety. it is always important to create a safety plan before anything happens. And so in this case, think about, okay, I'm going to a demonstration. What do I need to put in place? One of them, as I mentioned earlier, find a friend a risk who has the same risk tolerance as you do, and go with them. Make sure that you're not alone. Number two, have an emergency contact. If you have people back at home or a loved one who's not attending the demonstration, let them know you are attending, let them know where you're going to be, and let them know that you can reach out to them if you need anything. So have your emergency contact at the ready. Also, as you're going to the demonstration, again, we have these different risk tolerances. So first, identify where the exit points are. Identify with the people that you're going with the meeting points. I know when I've gone with my family to demonstrations, we always prepare in case we get lost. And also, often when you go to a demonstration, you might lose battery on your cell phone, you might lose signal, you might not have even brought your cell phone. So make sure that you have a plan. If we get lost, we're going to meet at X place, or if we get lost, we'll just meet at home. So make sure that you have a meeting point and know how to exit. Also, as you're walking through the demonstration, decide, do you want to be in the middle? Do you want to be on the sidelines? Some people might want to be on the sidelines because it's easier to exit. Something for you to think about. And identify the organizers and the safety leads. Now, you should know for every single No Kings rally, there are people who have been trained to de escalate. We have safety leads who have training. People will be identified. Often they're wearing a vest. So make sure that as you're going to the demonstration, you are able to identify who those people are, because if you need to notify them of something, or if you need to ask them a question, you know who they are. In this picture, for example, you can see that the ACLU of New York protest monitors are wearing their vest. And in terms of safety, write down on your body with permanent marker important numbers, whether that is the number of your emergency contact, whether that is the number of your lawyer if you need to reach out to them, whatever that is, make sure you write down, because again, as I mentioned, you could not have access to a phone. Next slide, please. I mentioned this earlier, but it was worth re-emphasizing. Non-violence is what we expect in the No Kings rallies. De-escalation is what we expect from every participant. And so that is why we're doing this training, to give you some tools to understand how do we practice non-violence? How do we de-escalate? Number one, we should all remember the freedom of speech is for everyone. That is both for protesters and counter protesters. So the people who might be there who disagree with our opinion, they too have a right to free speech. Let's keep that in mind. So the main and most important thing that we can do, if we see people with whom we disagree who are trying to get involved or trying to make some trouble, one of the de-escalation techniques is to ignore. Often enough, what people want is just attention. If you don't give it to them, they get tired. So ignore, step away, and redirect the focus through your songs, through your chants. We all know the songs, we all know the chants. Start chanting, start showing why you're there. So that's one way. Now, sometimes you have to engage. And, we saw in the role play that Layla and John did, John remained calm throughout the whole moment, even as he was asking questions, even as he was wondering what was happening. Remaining calm is really, really important, because, again, you don't want to give law enforcement or anybody an excuse to say, well, this person was getting agitated. This person was getting very moving around suddenly. So remain calm. And then, as I mentioned, safety and security is for all of us to do, but also there will be people there who have been trained and whose role it is to ensure our safety and security. So notify an organizer if you see anything that gives you pause. Next slide, please. Now, here are some ideas of what to bring. Of course, you know better what you need to bring, but again, as we think through how do we prepare. Question number one is you need to decide whether you want to bring your phone. I saw questions in the Q&A as to like, should I bring my phone? I've been told not to bring my phone. It is, again, a risk assessment, because on the one hand, as we saw in the interaction with Layla and John, if you have an interaction, your phone can be taken away. They could try to get to your photos through much more of your information, right? So also with your phone, you can be tracked. So it's something for you to decide. Some of the things that some people decide not to bring their phone at all. They leave it at home. Some other people have a phone specifically to use when they go and protest, so that their phone with all their pictures and their whole life is not with them, and it's just a phone to make communication easier. So something for you to think through. But if you do bring a phone, make sure that you fully charge the phone. I mentioned a permanent marker to write down numbers that are important on your body. You can bring a pen, a small notebook, or if you decide to bring your phone, you can use in a notes app on your phone, you can write your notes. Now, important, John mentioned this. For many of the things, interactions with law enforcement, they have to have a valid reason, right? So for them to believe that I am somebody who's not from the United States, they have to have a valid reason. Now, you can bring a photo ID if you choose to identify yourself and as asked. But important to note that the photo ID should be from the United States. Because if your photo ID is from another country, you can decide to use it, but just know that then what you're doing is you are right away sharing with the officer that you're not from here. So you're making that piece that much easier for them. So the suggestion is to bring a US photo ID. And of course, water, snacks, sunscreen, whatever it is that you need. And important, if you have medications that are important that you take, essential medications, take them with you. And also let your emergency contact know where they can find other medications at home, important documents, etc. And a poster, always important, always helpful, so you can express your opinion. Next slide, please. Now here, I will say what not to bring. And I want to say that it's very important and it's clear for us at No Kings rallies. We are asking everybody to not bring a weapon. Not even if it's a place where you can carry a weapon, where it's legal to carry a weapon. Again, we want to be nonviolent. We want to be peaceful. We want to de-escalate. And for those reasons, we are asking people attending the No Kings rallies to not bring a weapon. Also, we're expecting everybody who's coming out to the No Kings rallies to follow the law. And so anything illegal should not be brought. And then anything you can't afford to lose, because at a rally you could lose your phone, you could lose valuable information, or even sentimental things that you might not want to lose. So think about what you might not want to bring. Next slide. And now this is my final slide, and here I want to say it's important that we protect our privacy. How do we protect our privacy? Well, nowadays, and I saw also questions in the Q&A about this, nowadays through our phone and through surveillance mechanisms, there's many ways that we can be tracked, that we can be followed. So protecting our privacy is important. Now, if you do decide to take your phone, one of the biggest ways to protect your privacy is to turn off all biometric unlock functions. What does that mean? If you use to open your phone, if you use your face or if you use your thumbprint, then that is a biometric unlock function. It's important to turn them off because the police does not have to ask you if they have your permission to bring your phone to your face to open your phone. They can do that. However, if you have a password, and here a 6-digit password is the best thing to do, then they cannot force you to provide your 6-digit password to your phone unless they have a warrant. So the best way to protect the information that you have on your phone is if you have a password and do not use biometric unlock functions. Now, communication. If you're bringing your phone, you're likely doing so because you want to communicate with other people, the organizers, etc. I want to make sure that you know that there are certain applications that are more secure than others. So in terms of communicating via text, WhatsApp, regular text, they're not as protected as is an application called Signal. And the reason why Signal is more protected and it's better, safer to use is because they keep less data from you and they're encrypted from end to end. I know WhatsApp is also, but Signal, again, they keep less information from the user. So apps such as Signal are a good way to communicate in a safe way. And finally, if you don't want to be tracked, one way to avoid being tracked while you're at a demonstration is putting your phone on an airplane mode. Again, all of these are suggestions. You decide what works best for you. And on that, next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Layla.
Okay, everyone, we just got so much information. I always learn more every time I do these. Next, we are going to talk about how we're going to take action right after this call, which I know so many of you are on here to do this anyway. Let's go to the next. Oh, wait. Sorry. Before I tell us the brilliant ways we're going to take action, we're first going to test your knowledge again. And we're going to do another poll. And we're going to see if you guys did well this time. And we want to just go ahead and launch it. We want to hear, how confident do you feel after doing this training? Are you feeling like a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Are you ready to go tell your friends how to exercise their rights? That would be like a 5. And the second question, true or false? You must at least identify yourself. Let's remember to scroll down. There's also a third question. If an ICE agent is not wearing a mask, is it unlawful to photograph or take a video without their consent? Okay, I'm seeing many of you are participating. I'm seeing a lot of 4s and 5s actually, which is great to hear that this training has helped you improve your confidence. I'm gonna give it just we're gonna give a window of, I'm gonna wait for my fellow, all the team that's helping organize this call, tell me when to close this poll. Because there's so many of you. We have 9,000 people on this call. In fact, there's so many people on this call, the poll is kind of freezing, so I can't fully tell how many people have done it. That's how exciting this is.
I'm seeing 43% participated. Help us
Okay, let's
out.
get
Let's
that.
see. Let's bring it up.
Let's bring it up, everyone. Let's do this poll. I'm curious, Maribel, what's like something you're gonna sharpen from this training?
Well, I'm actually excited, Layla, to hear what the answers are. And
Okay,
so,
we're ready for the answers. Okay,
yeah,
I'm
well,
gonna
no,
learn
no.
something.
And so if people can help us answer the poll, the sooner we get to a higher percentage, the sooner we can hear from John what those answers will be.
Oh, that's so right. Okay, thank you, Maribel.
Yeah, but I think that we are at capacity with the poll results. So I think we should just move to the results and to the answers now. I'm
Let's
seeing from
do
the
it.
person who's managing the poll for us.
All right,
So yeah, on question 1, I saw that too. That people did feel more confident as a result of this training. That makes us feel so good because that's why we're doing this. Is to try to make people feel more confident about exercising their basic rights. But let's go to the answers to the questions. The second poll question, I'm trying to pull it back up. 1 second. Or Maribel, do you have it in front of you to say it again?
Yeah, so the
Yes.
second question was true or false. In every state, you must at least identify yourself by stating your name and address to a police officer who requests it. True or false? You must identify yourself to the police.
This was a tricky question. The answer is false, but it was tricky. It's tricky because there are some states that do have what are called stop and identify laws that require you to identify yourself if you are otherwise lawfully stopped. But it's false because not all states have these laws. If you're interested, you can check a document that we put in to the chat earlier to see if your state has a stop and identify law. It's also false because in states that have those laws, not all states require you to provide your address. Some only require you to state your name. And finally, even in a state with these laws, they don't apply just based upon any request that a law enforcement officer makes. They only apply where the officer has made a lawful stop based upon reasonable suspicion that you have committed a crime or are committing a crime. They don't apply in more casual questioning situations, such as the one that Layla and I had, where protesters coming back from the rally and the office just fishing for information. So that one's
Thanks,
false.
John. Can we go to the third one?
The third one,
If an ICE agent is not wearing a mask, it is unlawful to photograph or take a video of them without their consent. True or false?
That one's false, more easily false. ICE might want you to think that that's true, and many ICE officers wear masks, and it's not uncommon for ICE or other law enforcement officers to tell people they're not permitted to photograph them or take videos. But that's a fundamental constitutional right and one that ACLU will keep fighting to defend. This includes ICE officers, National Guard, police, whoever. So that one's false. And I'm going
Thanks
to
so
pass it
much,
back to
Jonathan.
Layla. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You all improved so much. I'm just gonna very quickly, if we go to the next slide. Okay, y'all know this. No Kings, we're pulling up on Saturday. I want to know, if you're gonna be there, it's going to be a very important moment. It's an important time for all of us to show that this abuse of power is not scaring us into complying. So please, please, please join us this Saturday at a No Kings. They're happening coast to coast, even in small places. So don't assume that your town, your locality is not having one. Please make sure to find an event near you. And now we have 3 minutes left, so I think we have time for just a couple questions, Jonathan, if you can get through them a little quickly. Let's go to this question here. Someone asked, can I answer my name as Jane Doe as an alias, not as my real name?
Definitely not in a state that has a stop and identify law. That requires you to provide your real name, not an alias. And I don't know. I mean, I can't offer legal advice. I think it's quite risky, and unpredictable what would happen if you did that in another situation. I guess the cop would know you are trying to be a smartass, by saying Jane Doe or John Doe and answer their question without answering their question. But I would think it's unpredictable how they would respond to that.
John, and also to emphasize that it's really important that we're truthful. And so we must answer questions truthfully. And if we have any documentation, it should be real documentation.
Thank you,
Thank
Maribel.
you, Maribel. Sounds like we should be exercising our right to remain silent before we lie. Okay, Jonathan, here's another question. What do you do if they say you're not free to leave?
You
10
don't
seconds
leave.
or less.
I mean, you don't leave. That's a situation in which problems arise if you've been told you're not free to leave and then you leave. And that's where it becomes much more important to make a decision as to whether you're moving into, I want to speak with a lawyer. I don't want to answer your questions. I don't consent to being searched. I'm exercising my right to remain silent.
John, and the person might also feel unfair, like, why are they not letting me leave? And so you might feel that way, and this is where it's important to document, write down what you feel. So if you feel that your rights were violated, you can address that later with a lawyer. But at that moment, again, let's remember de-escalation and safety are the name of the game. So following orders at that moment is
That's right.
important.
And thank you, Maribel. And you can ask the police, why am I being detained or why am I not free to leave? And you know what? A well-trained, properly behaving law enforcement officer who's following best practices would tell you why. But that doesn't happen in every situation, but you can ask and it can be helpful to get the answer.
And Layla, I see us going very fast because we are at 1 minute before the hour. So I think it's time to wrap it up. So we'll turn it over to you to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you so much. We got so many great questions. We are now going to close our event here. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow at a No Kings rally. We're going to share a survey with you in the chat. I would love, love, love it if you could fill out this survey before you log off while this training is still fresh in your mind. I know that some of our tech folks are going to drop it in the chat here. And yeah, like I said, please do it before you log off while it's still fresh. We really do read all the feedback, all the comments from these trainings. We adapt them every time to make them better. And I really want to let's give a shout out from me, Jonathan, Maribel, to all the team who is not here that you see talking. It takes a whole team of us. We have our interpreters, thank you so much. We have our closed captioners, thank you so much. all of my teammates in the backstage of this webinar, thank you. And thank you all for being here and for standing up for democracy for all of us. See you tomorrow, or see you this Saturday at No Kings, and stay safe.